Let's talk tech today with Walid Fattah. He is CEO and co-founder of Kourts. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Now, I'm looking forward to talking about your tennis technology with which you're hoping to disrupt the tennis world with an app that's going to help tennis players and instructors book courts, etc. I know I'm being very general, but we'll get to that in just a moment.
Of course.
But if you don't mind, I'd like to hear more about you, about your personal story. So you were raised in Geneva, then you were in banking for a while, took you to different parts of the world.
Correct.
Now you're in LA and Silicon Beach. So lots to talk about. Walk us through a little bit of your journey.
Sure, of course. My parents met in Geneva back in the 60s. I was technically born in the UK, but lived all my life in Geneva, Switzerland. Worked for Credit Suisse, the second largest bank of Switzerland, for 17 years.
Okay.
I was fortunate enough to spend time in Geneva, in Zurich, in New York, in Singapore, in Dubai, always with Credit Suisse. And it was always very challenging in challenging environments, but a lot of fun. And tennis was an accident. Tennis was...
Are you a tennis player?
Well, yeah, I've played tennis all my life. Never at a level good enough to know that I would make that, my full-time job ever. But that opportunity just came up, as I said, as an accident.
Okay. And so at what point do you decide I'm going to go off and leave Credit Suisse and start?
So I had left Credit Suisse before. Had another venture earlier than this back in Dubai at the time, which was completely different. And tennis was a frustration, in fact, from playing again in all those different cities and countries I've lived in. I don't know if you play tennis yourself, but it's always pretty challenging to try and find a club, find a court, find a partner, find a pro. It's always been a problem. Okay. And not only for me,
everywhere
but everywhere.
Exactly. As a general.
Exactly. So back in 2015, I was in Dubai, and I was thinking this is not possible with the technology that we have today. If you look at the Uberization of the world, if you look at the open tables, all those different businesses, I was like, how is it possible that tennis has not been disrupted? Golf has been disrupted. Other yoga, Pilates, CrossFit have been disrupted with the mind, bodies, class passes of the world. But tennis had not been disrupted. Obviously, there's a reason why, because it's not an easy market to disrupt.
Right.
But so I flew in 2015. I was in Los Angeles, started there, and went all the way to New York. It was during the U.S. Open, and interviewed clubs, players, pros to try and understand what was the offering out in the U.S. because obviously the U.S. is a big market. And that's when the idea was, okay, wait, maybe there's potential there. And that's when I came back to Dubai, because I had an office there, and started doing a lot of research, because before you start something up, you got to make sure that you're in the right market. Exactly. So that's what I did in Dubai until I decided to move to LA. By then we had co-founders. We had, it wasn't just an idea on a sheet of paper.
Was it easy to convince your partners? Because you're one of 4 co-founders.
Correct. We're 4 co-founders, 2 from Switzerland, 2 from Sweden. Out of the 4 of us, 3 are executives. 1 is more of an advisor. He's based in Dubai still. He's also Swiss. And my 2 other co-founders are Swedish. 1 is based in Los Angeles with me in the offices there. And the other one's based in Europe, where we have our tech department. I'd say it wasn't difficult to convince them, but for different reasons than tennis per se, because I was the one that lived with frustrations of booking tennis courts. Right. But they had built businesses, they had scaled businesses, they liked the idea of disrupting the market. So, obviously the only way of convincing someone to do that is by having the right research, and that's what I brought to the table. And then I sat with those before they became co-founders. And we talked about how we would be able to disrupt that market and what technology would be needed for. And then we designed a full strategy, it's not only up until today. Our strategy is designed for the next years to come.
So what does that technology look like?
So technically, the term of what we've built is what we call a SaaS-enabled marketplace. So it's a software as a solution that basically tennis clubs in the US, and we're mostly going to talk about the US here, 90% of the market.
Because this is the biggest market for tennis.
It is. If you take China and India, obviously out of the scope, but yes, US is a pretty big market. You have 18 million tennis players. You have approximately 30,000 tennis clubs across the US, which is equivalent to 300,000 tennis clubs. Wow. There's about 450 million courts booked every year. This is all research we did with the Tennis Industry Association and with the federation, the tennis federation in the US, the USTA. Okay. So we looked at that market and thinking, how do you put that market digital? Because 90% of clubs in the US are pen and paper. And pen and paper, you can't, I mean, that means that there's someone holding a sheet and you need a phone to call to see if there's an available court.
Right.
Now, I keep telling everyone, I'm like, I don't want to be on the phone all day. I don't want to have to call someone to set up an appointment. I can't cook to save my life. And in LA, we go out for dinners when we have time, when we're not working. And I use OpenTable or Resi, they're big in the US, to book a table. I don't want to call a restaurant to hear, 1 minute, sir. These are old things. So we thought, okay, how do we digitalize tennis?
Right.
So we built a software that basically manages the tennis facility from A to Z, whether it's the membership database, whether it's the court booking sheet, whether it's the schedule of the instructors, it's all there. And that software powers the mobile apps that we've built. We've built 2 mobile applications. So we have a B2B, which is the software in the club, and then we have the B2C, which is basically you, me, anyone can download the app for free, not in Switzerland because we don't have clubs here, but in the US. And they'll see all the clubs that we have on our platform. So whoever's using that software,
Right.
they're live on the app. So the app reads at the exact same moment as you ask for a court in a specific area at a specific time. It will read all the different offerings that those different softwares and different clubs have, and they'll give you a live, availability of courts.
So it's not just about booking courts. It's
Well,
about
so we have different phases in which through which the business is going. The first phase was to book a tennis court.
Okay.
The second phase, which we've reached as well now, you have tennis camps. So you could sign up for, a women's, depending what level you are.
very, very, very beginners.
Well, you'd be able to find one of those on those programs, and you'd be able to book it and pay it through the Kourts mobile app.
Okay.
And the incredible thing is, clubs love it because right now, occupancy rate of those different programs are coming up just because of the sheer easiness and the convenience of being able to make that booking without having to go and find out where a club is, without having to go and ask who the pros. It's all there, and they have the description of the class. You have it. It's all there.
So it's safe to say you're Uberizing tennis a little bit.
So
I mean, it's part of the
that
gig
part,
economy.
well, yes, but so funnily enough, that part is not the same model as Uber because you're booking something that is a tennis court. You're not booking someone's schedule, which is different in the Uber case. But if I was to compare our business to Uber, we do have a similarity. One of the second mobile app that we have is an app for instructors. So what instructors will soon be able to do is they'll be able to put their schedule on the Kourts app. And you, me, and anyone else will be able to say, hey, I want to play in Santa Monica tomorrow night at 6 p.m., and I'm looking for an instructor. And the instructors will have their schedule that's open on the app. And what they'll be able to do is they'll be able to say, well, Wednesday afternoon I'm at the dentist. I can't give tennis lessons.
All right.
So when you'll go and you'll look and you say, I want to play Wednesday afternoon, whoever can't give you that lesson that day won't get a notification. But all the other instructors will get a notification the same way as an Uber driver does.
So as I'm listening to you talk, Walid, I can't help but think that your company, you're sitting on an amazing amount of data.
Oh, yeah, very true. I think at the end of the day, my co-founders and I speak about that a lot. And I think, on the longer term, we can be considered as a data company. And I'll dig a little bit in here. We have, obviously, Kourts has, and I say we is not as an individual, but we have the database of every single club that's on our platform. Therefore, we know percentage of gender. We know the average age of tennis players in a specific club. And then you download the app and you start making bookings. I know that you only play on clay. I know you only play on Tuesdays. So you can just try and imagine the data we have. It's so interesting because now we know if I should say the US Tennis Federation was to say, would you know the occupancy rate of a particular area in the US? Well, the more clubs we have, we'll be able to say, well, we can tell you the occupancy rate by zip code, by state. We can tell you the occupancy rate by gender, by age, all those different things. And these are all data points that are clearly very, very important. I think, it's something that the tennis industry does need.
Well, it's definitely, as we've all been hearing, data is the resource of the future, right?
And it's funny because our software offers to clubs all the data that they need. So now, they're starting to see occupancy rate in their club, which before, you would ask them, and it's one of the exercises that we often do, what's the occupancy rate in your club? And they'll give you a ballpark figure, but they don't really have a clear idea. Now they know exactly to the percent. And our software offers them the ability, to compare week on week. So they know they're getting a real pulse of what's going on in their clubs.
And if we widen out a little bit too, so you started in the US.
Correct.
Next up, you were telling me it was going to be Australia?
So yeah, so the idea is when we started this, we had to try and find out which was, you know, the US is a big country, right? So we had to try and find out the key areas to go to. So obviously, the weather is one of the big, you know, factors across that sport. So it was always, you know, the sunny states. So we thought, okay, should we do Florida? Should we do California? And my co-founders and I, when we sat down, we said, well, Florida was definitely something because of the size of the market, California as well. But then we thought, you know, we're a venture, we're a startup. So we thought we might raise money in the US. And if that's the case, you don't want to be based in Jacksonville, Florida. So we went for California. So that was part of the geographical start.
Okay.
And then now we have employees of ours that are based in Georgia, Atlanta, which is one of the biggest markets across the US, in Florida, in Illinois, in Chicago, in Boston, in New England. Soon we'll be in the tri-state with New York, which is in Connecticut, which is pretty big.
Yeah.
And we've also looked at our strategy going forward, right? So we know which are the next states that we'll be doing in the US.
Okay.
And now we're already looking at the future. And the future has always been Australia by 2020 was one of the countries that we always pinpointed for different reasons. First of all, obviously the size of the tennis market. The second reason, well, the weather, of course, which is why you have a lot of tennis players out there. But also the fact that they're very ahead when it comes to technology. I think, you know, them being remote, has been something that has made them depend a lot on technology. So it's something that is easy for them to grasp, way more than if we were to start with, you know, Switzerland, which is a great tennis country. We have great tennis players in this country,
names.
of course.
Yes.
And obviously, you know, it's a big country for that. But technology-wise, there's a lot of challenges. There's challenges. Our software allows any type of club to be on our platform, whether it's a private club, because that's another big difference with our business. If you talk about open table, there's no private restaurants.
Right.
A restaurant is a restaurant. You can book a table. A club, you have country clubs in the US where if you or me are not a member there, we can't even walk in.
You have no access.
Exactly. But our software allows, our platform allows a private club, a commercial club where you pay to play, a homeowner association, universities. We have everyone on our platform. So in the US, 65% of the market is what we call commercial, pay and play. 35% is private.
Okay.
I don't know the numbers, unfortunately, about Switzerland, but I would guess it's maybe 3/4 would be private and maybe a quarter would be commercial. Yeah. So for us, low-hanging fruit is commercial because for them it makes total sense to be on a marketplace like ours.
Yeah, absolutely. But with the clubs, it's a special challenge. So, the smaller clubs.
It's a challenge.
But explain to me why exactly.
So in a private club, I think that what's interesting, and we speak to a lot of them on daily basis, you pay top dollars to be a member in a club. So the club has to give you a certain service. And I think that our
priority, I assume, right?
Well, priority for their members. Yeah. But if that's only members, they all have that same level of priority, right? So they all can book at the same time. And we have, obviously, the settings of our software allows a club to adapt the software to their rules, not to our rules. But what I meant by this is more the fact that if you're paying a lot of money to be a member in a club, you want to have the service that you're paying for. And one of which is obviously, online booking. I'm a bad example because I keep saying it, the hairdresser. If I had to go to the hairdresser, I wouldn't want to just walk in to know if he can cut my hair then and there. Okay. I wouldn't want to have to call and make a booking. I love the idea of being online on my app and seeing that.
This goes back to what you were saying. I mean, it depends on how open a culture, a country is to digital technology,
of course.
How ready they are for this.
So that's what designed a part of our strategy going forward.
Yeah, and that's again one of the challenges that maybe you find here in Switzerland as opposed to places like Australia or Sweden, even where you said you're going to be.
Sweden is very ahead when it comes to tech, so they understand tech pretty well and they use it. So for them, it's funny. I do this exercise when I'm in Switzerland. I don't come enough, but my family's still here. So I ask people when they ask me what I'm doing and how are we building our business, and I ask people in Switzerland if they know Open Table. People don't know Open Table in Switzerland. So there's other type of businesses, but in the US and in many other countries, I mean, 75% of bookings go through Open Table in the US. It's incredible.
Yeah. It's not about not being familiar with tech. Of course, Switzerland is a tech innovation place, so we're familiar with tech. I think maybe it's the using of the digital tools maybe could use a little bit more.
You're right.
Time.
Yeah, totally.
Maybe. tell me about, to finish up, tell me about investment. You mentioned you're still a startup. You're like 20 people.
Correct.
So I assume that getting investors is still an important part of your
It's my day-to-day job.
strategy, yes.
As a CEO, it's my day-to-day job. Obviously, making sure that we have enough fuel in the tank. But you know, it was interesting when we raised money last year, and most of our investors are from here, from Switzerland, which is great because obviously me being Swiss, it's been a pleasure working with them and you know, keeping them updated on what we're doing.
That helps open doors, I assume, too, with investors, or?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, being Swiss is something. But I think, you know, now that we have a working product, that we have revenues, it takes you to a different league. And we're being contacted by a lot of VCs out in the US, which is interesting because, you know, they're looking for those opportunities. And I think that when it comes to tech and sport, it's a very niche market. So, you know, we're being courted right now by some of the big names out in the US, which is, it's flattering. It should not be distracting.
Right.
So we're trying to stay very focused on that. I think, you know, my co-founders and I have been pretty good at being careful at, you know, our burn rate, which is something in a startup that you look under a microscope on I'm not saying on a daily basis, but it's something that we've been very, very careful to. And I think, you know, our investors, you know, have realized that. And, you know, it's going forward, of course, you know, you keep on raising money. And that's what we're doing right now, as a matter of fact.
All right, and you have a few high-profile investors I know you can't mention, but like you said, a lot of Swiss people with their attention on Kourts. What is the dream?
Well, the dream, I'll tell you, the dream is really, for me as a tennis player and thinking of, you know, all the tennis players around there, if we can build this business the way we intend to do, we think we definitely will make a change in the world of tennis and we'll grow the sport. By making it more accessible, by making tennis more accessible, people will play more. I use that analogy again with Uber, the one you used before. And I say, today, transportation has become so much easier to go from A to B that you do more things, right? When I land in any airport, I don't have to worry about transportation. I know I have my Uber app or Lyft in the US. And you know, our dream is that wherever you are, you can take your app out and you can book a tennis court. Therefore, you'll travel with your tennis racket because you know you can find a tennis court. And that's really the dream. That's really the dream.
The dream. And to eventually also bring that to Switzerland, maybe
yes,
not now,
course.
but in the future.
Of course. You know, not only because of my ties and my love for my country, but because, you know, obviously a lot of tennis players are here and the same frustrations here. So we want to fix that as well.
Thank you so much, Walid.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.